Okay, Ritusha, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Ramsey. And thank you, everyone. Good morning, everyone. How are all of y'all? Silence means that you're okay. I'm really honored to be part of this webinar because the issue that we're discussing today is really close to my heart and also a key area of work at Global Shepherds. So I'm honored to be invited. Let me give me a second. Let me put up my slides. Can you see this? Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Ramsey. I wanted to do a slide on Global Shepherds, but Ramsey has helped me to do the introduction. So I'll move on to the second slide, which is no. I'll start with the objective of the organization. Okay. Global Shepherds objective. We are actually an organization that focuses on women and children who are marginalized. And our organizational objective is to strengthen the safeguarding system for our beneficiary population, mainly women and children, by improving access to basic rights, services, information. And this is done through direct intervention, outreach, and capacity building. We're also actively involved in research and advocacy work. And through our work, especially through our direct work with the beneficiary, the program beneficiary, especially the survivors of trafficking, we are able to bring their voices to the forefront and use it in our negotiation and our discussion with policymakers to see where and how reforms can be made in the systems. I'd like to highlight that Global Shepherd, as Ramsey also has shared, is a trauma response organization, and we continuously and consciously integrate the understanding of trauma
Britusha, are you there?
Hi, Britusha, are you there? Okay, let me double check. Britusha, maybe it's a... Okay, yeah, I think she has logged out in this event. Okay, so with this situation, it really happens, everybody, since this is a tech-driven event. Are you okay, Sumita, to present instead? Okay, so thank you, Sumita. Oh, Britusha is back. Okay, hi, Britusha. Hi, Britusha, can you hear us?
I can. I'm sorry, got cut off. I am back. Shall I continue?
Yes, please continue.
Okay. I apologize. I don't know what happened. Okay, I'll go back to talking about Global Shepherd. We are a trauma response organization, and we continue and consciously integrate the understanding of trauma into all the work that we do. And we try to ensure that all our staffs at all levels in the organization have a basic awareness of trauma and understand how trauma can affect families, groups, organizations, communities, as well as individuals. Hence, our work practice are guided by the 4 assumptions of trauma-informed approach, also known as the 4R. I'd just like to share the 4R with you. we realize the widespread of impact of trauma and understand the potential pathway for recovery. We also recognize the signs and symptoms of trauma in clients, family, staff, and others involved within the system. We also respond by fully integrating knowledge of trauma into policies, procedures, and practices, and we seek to actively resist re-traumatization. So that's the 4P that we practice within the organization, so that we are more trauma-informed and more sensitive to the needs of the program participants, especially the trauma, especially the survivors of trafficking that we work with. Just to give you a little bit of what we do in terms of our work with trafficking before I move on to opportunities and challenges of chip programming in Malaysia. Just wanted to share what we do in Global Shepherd. Global Shepherd is a survivor-centric organization, and we place a strong emphasis on engaging survivors on trafficking in a holistic and empowering manner. Our engagement approach is guided by a gender response principle as well as a right, community, and strength-based development framework. As you can see that our approach has got a 4-quadrant approach, which is the direct services, community outreach, capacity building, research, and advocacy. I just want to touch a little bit on all the 4 quadrants. The first quadrant is where we manage a shelter, and we are working directly with our trafficking survivors, and we provide comprehensive case management. The objective of the shelter is to ensure that everyone feels safe and able to experience recovery and trauma with recovery from trauma with dignity, and they are able to seek justice for themselves. The second quadrant is the community outreach. Through community outreach initiatives, we at Global Shepherd try to raise awareness about trafficking and its impact, fostering a sense of responsibility within the community to combat the issue of collectively. The third quadrant is capacity building and training. Here, the organization invests in training of various stakeholders, such as the law and enforcement, on trauma-informed principles when working with survivors. By doing so, we aim to sensitize systems to recognize trauma manifestation and create safer space for survivors to seek justice. And the last quadrant is our research and advocacy. We conduct research to gain insight into trafficking-related issues, and we are very privileged because we have our shelter and we get a lot of information and data from the survivors themselves. And when we do training, we also get a lot of insight from them. We use these data in our advocacy effort to drive policy change and to initiate legal reforms for better protection for survivors. So that's about Global Shepherds. And moving on to giving you a little bit about human trafficking and context in Malaysia, just to give you a little bit of trends, the flow of trafficking as well as the type of trafficking in Malaysia. In Malaysia, Malaysia is a primary destination country for trafficking victims. It attracts individuals from neighboring countries such as Indonesia, Myanmar, Bangladesh, Cambodia, Vietnam, and Thailand, who are often lured with promise for better job opportunities. Malaysia is also a transit country for human trafficking, where victims pass through on their way to other destinations, particularly to the Middle East. And Malaysia is also a source country. It's become a source country as well, where Malaysians migrate to various countries, particularly to Southeast Asia, to seek better opportunities for themselves, and sometimes are lured into situations of trafficking as well. So we are unique in that sense. In terms of types of trafficking, the 2 main trafficking that we often hear in the reports is the forced and sex trafficking. Forced labor remains a significant concern in Malaysia. Reports of labor exploitation, debt bondage, and other forms of coerced work, particularly those in low-skilled sectors such as construction, agriculture, manufacturing, and domestic work. Sex trafficking. It is another form of human trafficking prevalent in Malaysia. Victims are often women and children who are forced into commercial sex industries. Some are trafficked within the country, and we've seen that in our own shelters, while others are brought into Malaysia from neighboring countries for the purpose of sexual exploitation. I'm not able to share accurate data, so I didn't put it up in terms of the numbers of trafficking cases that we see, because within the context of Malaysia, accurate and updated statistic on human trafficking is a bit challenging to collect. or to obtain due to the nature of the crime and the reluctance of victims to come forward. Yeah. So this is just the context, just an overview. I'm going to move on to share a little bit of what has the government been doing, what's the government response in terms of trafficking in person. This is just the a broad brushstroke of what's been happening in the country. There are other areas that has developed, and there's a lot of rich programming that's been happening in Malaysia as well. But I'll just share the highlights, which includes the government has put in place a legal framework that was some years ago through the enactment of Anti-Trafficking in Person and Anti-Smuggling of Migrant Act that was done to 2007. But since then, there's been 3 revisions that's been done. There's also been the establishment of a dedicated agency, the Anti-Trafficking in Persons and Anti-Smuggling of Migrants Council of MAPO to combat trafficking. This is an agency that is in the forefront to promote interagency and multi-stakeholder collaboration, and it is the lead agency that actually guides anti-trafficking programming in Malaysia, and it's a government body. We also have the 5-year National Action Plan that was launched 2 years ago. It provides a roadmap as a whole nation approach towards combating trafficking, and through the works of the various agencies, entities, stakeholders, there's slowly a building of strong collaboration and strong community in terms of how we combat trafficking as a nation, and that's through awareness, through capacity building, to protection intervention, and among the others lah. Okay, I also like to share what is the government's current response to combat it. In Malaysia, the approach to combat human trafficking is often structured around the framework, the 4P framework, which is the protection, prevention, prosecution, and partnership. This is also aligned. The National Action Plan is also aligned within the 4Ps. And most of the programming that we do as different stakeholders, especially as NGOs, are also aligned within these 4Ps. These pillars provide a comprehensive strategy to address human trafficking effectively. So within Malaysia, we have the prevention pillar that focuses on measures aimed at preventing human trafficking from occurring in the first place. The key elements include awareness raising, which is done in collaboration with various stakeholders, including the various ministries that are part of the National Council for Anti-Trafficking. Some of the highlights that I would like to share is the awareness program in schools and community learning centers, which is a close collaboration between private sectors, CSOs, and government. The incorporation of lessons on human trafficking in the national curriculum, which is currently used in secondary schools. Partnership with key stakeholders, especially the aviation, hotel industries, companies, plantation, agriculture, just to name a few, but there are quite a number. Okay. There's also legal reforms that's taken place, such as the anti-trafficking in persons and anti-smuggling in persons that I've mentioned that has gone through 3 revisions in the past 15 years. In terms of prosecution, this pillar involves legal measures to identify, investigate, prosecute, and punish individuals and networks involved in human trafficking. So there's been a lot of work done in terms of strengthening law enforcement agencies' capacity to investigate and combat trafficking, be it through local NGOs in partnership with the government or with international agencies and other entities, and bring in expertise into the country. This would include IJN, IOM, UNODC. Different agencies have come in to work in partnership and collaboration. There's also been intentional work done to institutionalize trauma-informed approaches in work, especially under the protection pillar, where there is direct intervention and work with the survivors. In terms of protection, there's a lot that's been done as well. The revision of the national indicators recently and training of enforcement officers. There's been introduction of victim assistance specialists. There's also strengthening of shelter, care programs, support programs for victims of trafficking, and also a bit of work done and reintegration of survivors back to their country. And in terms of partnership, it's an ongoing effort. CSO, government, international agencies, there's continuous partnership that's brewing and new things coming up. But yet, with all this, we still do have our own set of challenges. Okay. So addressing human trafficking in Malaysia, as in many other countries, presents several challenges. These challenges can be grouped into various categories, as I've categorized here, which includes enforcement and prosecution, victim identification and support, social and economic factors. I'm just going to speak a little bit on the 5 elements that I've put up here in terms of the challenge and the work that we do with the various stakeholders. In terms of data and research, this is really key in whatever we do, because without data, we won't know how to do program planning in an efficient and accurate manner. There has been very limited data or research into trafficking in Malaysia, the context of trafficking, the trends of trafficking, investigation, outcomes of investigation. There's been very little work that's been done, which then hinders effective programming. Limited data and reporting mechanisms on trafficking impede efforts to understand the scope and the problem and to formulate effective response. Research gap as well relates to human trafficking in Malaysia. Hindering the development of evidence-based policies and programs, particularly those that include that of the voice of the survivors. There's very few in which the voice of survivors are included, even in data and research. The other challenge that we face in terms of programming is enforcement and prosecution. There's a lack of there's a need to strengthen coordination among the different stakeholders, actually, in particular enforcement and prosecution, but generally cut across, there's a need for coordination. While we do a lot of good work, there is a need for us to just step back and look at how we work, how will we be able to work more in tandem and in collaboration in terms of achieving the nation's aspiration of combating trafficking. Victim identification and support. Identification of traffic victims can be difficult, as victims may be hidden or afraid to come forward due to the threats from traffickers. In terms of support, especially reintegration, providing survivors or traffic victims with the means to reintegrate into society and regain control of their lives can be complex, particularly for undocumented migrants who want to return back. But it can also be very daunting for those who want to return home after so many years in being in Malaysia and in a traffic situation. It can be complex and a long-term rehabilitation process. Awareness and prevention. Developing awareness campaigns that are culturally sensitive and resonates with the diverse community in Malaysia can be challenging. Community engagement. There's a need to increase community engagement, particularly including the voice of survivors in rural areas to raise awareness. That's where that's been highlighted, that that's the most vulnerable population. In cross-border issues, here what it means is human trafficking often involves cross-border movement requiring coordination and cooperation with neighboring countries. So that's some of the challenges that, in a nutshell, I highlight. And moving on to TIP programming. What are the opportunities for TIP programming? Actually, this one, when I was reflecting on this, I felt that everything that we do in our daily lives is an opportunity for us to be able to contribute into the larger picture of TIP programming. Because if you remember at the beginning, Ramsey has mentioned that Global Shepherd's objective is to strengthen safeguarding systems. Our program with TIP also is to strengthen safeguarding systems. In that sense, safeguarding systems are in every nook and corner within the ecological system that we live in. So with every act that we do, individually, as families, as communities, societies, in consciously making an effort to strengthen those safeguarding systems, be it through the 4 pillars of protection, prevention, prosecution, or partnership, it actually strengthens our opportunity to do programming in a more efficient way. So I just highlight a few of the areas that opportunities where there's gap or there may already been ongoing programs, but there's a need for us to continue to strengthen these programs. The first one is under the protection pillar, which is awareness and education programs. Here, I like to highlight multi-stakeholder collaboration is essential and foundational to develop and implement ongoing and consistent awareness anti-TIP campaign messages targeting vulnerable communities, especially the youth, potential victims, and the general public to create awareness and to sensitize them about the risks and signs of human trafficking. Create educational materials, including brochures, posters, online resources to disseminate information about trafficking, prevention, and protection using different platforms for the youths, for the elderly, for the adults. Different, we're all different. Our behaviors in terms of how we receive information is so different. So to looking at using different platforms that are suitable for the different population and taking into account the age, gender, and diversity when we do this. The other areas is the capacity building and training to respond appropriately using a trauma-informed and victim-centered approach. Here, perhaps we can offer training programs for law enforcement agencies, which are more targeted and ongoing. Also looking at institutionalizing the training programs within the systems and to provide also training for frontline workers to enhance their knowledge and skills in identifying, investigating, responding to TIP cases. Also, I'd like to highlight the need to provide training capacity building opportunities for NGOs as well. As we work on issues of trafficking, we also continuously need to refresh our own knowledge and understanding and also our skills by through sharing and through knowledge building. Victim support and rehabilitation, support the shelters, safe homes that already exist for trafficking survivors and work in partnership with those shelters to ensure survivors have access to medical care, counseling, legal assistance, and vocational training, and also develop programs to help survivors reintegrate into society. This is the most difficult to reintegrate into society because circumstance, personalities, and various things have changed internally and externally. So reintegration would require long-term and a lot of support. This integration would also entail and include job training, access to education, retraining, counseling, psychotherapy, psychosocial programs. Legal advocacy and policy reform. Advocate for policy reforms and legal amendments to strengthen anti-trafficking legislation and enhance victim protection measures for those who have legal backgrounds on organizations that are more prone towards research and have the ability and tools to collect data. This is where the gap is in terms of legal advocacy reforms, but using evidence-based data. So there I move on to the research and data. Conduct research to assess the scope and nature of human trafficking in Malaysia, identify trends, accurate trends, and gather data on trafficking cases. Collaborating is key. Collaborate with academic institutions, share research findings with relevant authorities and organizations to inform evidence-based policy and programming. The other area is community empowerment. Support community-based initiatives that empower vulnerable populations with job trainings, economic empowerment. Promote community-led awareness and prevention. So it's community-based approach and prevention. Networking and collaboration is really key. Collaborate with local, international organizations, government agencies, and other stakeholders to coordinate efforts and share resources. This is key because trafficking is really complex, and to support a survivor really requires different lenses and different support systems to come in. So collaboration is essential to support survivors in their rehabilitation and recovery process. Advocacy and public policies as well. I would like to also include media, the role of media and artistic initiatives, perhaps documentary and films, art and advocacy using art, literature, storytelling as a means to educate the public about the issue. And the last one, but not least, I think what's important is also in terms of programming to look at perhaps using technology and innovation. There's limited avenues currently where we see technology and innovation being used as a form to promote awareness, to promote protection, prevention, and also to promote collaboration. So digital platform, developing technology solutions to facilitate the reporting of trafficking cases and to provide resources to survivors, as well as using those technology to help us to analyze data and to help us look at trends would be useful. Creating tools for data analysis and visualization to help identify trafficking, hotspots, and trends with something that is key and essential in the work of trafficking programming. So I end my presentation by sharing again that ultimately the goal is not the one of programming, but it's a collaborative effort. And what we need to do is to really strengthen safeguarding systems to protect the men, the women, girls, boys, and men in our community. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Britusha, for that very enlightening presentation. Okay, again, everybody, if you have questions from that very smart presentation from Britusha, please feel free to put them here in the chat box below. And again, to those who have just recently been admitted, we will have two more presentations. The next one will be from Sumita of Our Journey, then Mr. Kuldeep Chauhan from Free the Slaves. So the person you have heard earlier was Miss Britusha Franklin from Global Shepherds, Berhad from Malaysia. Okay, so without further much ado, again, thank you, Britusha. So without further much ado, let me introduce to you our second panelist. Our second panelist is the executive director of Our Journey. She's an advocate and solicitor and the sole proprietor of Chambers of Sumita. She holds an LLB from University of East London and was called to the Malaysian bar in 2005. She is qualified mediator and on the mediators panel of the Bar Council Malaysian Mediation Center. Again, as I've shared with you earlier, she's the executive director of Our Journey, a civil society organization based in Malaysia, which provides pro bono legal representation to migrant and refugee communities in labor, immigration, and criminal cases. She is the current chairperson of the Migrant Forum in Asia, a regional network with civil society, trade unions, academicians, journalists, lawyers, members of the parliaments, and individuals from 18 countries in the Middle East and Asia advocating for the rights and protection of the migrant workers. So as you can see, Sumita is a very good resource person in tackling the anti-trafficking in persons, legal and perspective challenges and opportunities in Malaysia. So Sumita, the floor is yours. Sumita, you're on.
Yeah, I hope you can see my screen.
Yes, we can clearly see you.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay, I'm just going to go into my. So as what Romsey mentioned, we are a registered civil society in Malaysia, and we provide pro bono legal representation because migrants and refugees do not have resources to pay lawyers. So this is why we provide legal representation for free. And we do also rescues of trafficked victims, and we provide them legal representation as well. Our trafficked victims, the cases are usually either referred to us by NGOs or families of the migrant, or the migrants themselves calling us. We also work with the embassies in Malaysia on cases as well as repatriation cases. We do a lot of advocacy with the Malaysian government, and also governments in the region. We have project-based work with the ILO, IOM, and other donors as well on migrant workers specifically. And we do a lot of work with the migrant and refugee communities on training, financial literacy, labor laws, also post-arrival orientation training for Filipino domestic workers. We believe that the training on labor laws and also financial literacy is extremely important for migrants who want to work and live in Malaysia. So it's important that we know about the Malaysian context in terms of trafficking. So we ratified the Palermo Protocol, and we also have an act which was in July 2007. However, we had several amendments to the act, which was in 2010, 2015, and finally in 2022. But I must say that all these amendments that came about were reactive. So there were some attempts to look at the whole Atip Som Act, which is the Anti-Trafficking Act, as a whole, and also to do needed amendments to the whole act. But even up to 2022, the amendments have been merely reactive. There are many parts of the act that needs to be amended, but hasn't been done yet. We also must understand that we have the anti-trafficking and the smuggling of migrants in the same act. So this is also a major problem for us, because where migrants are not classified as traffic victims, or where they arrest persons who smuggle migrants into the country, then the victims are also charged for entering the country illegally under the Immigration Act. So sometimes victims who are trafficking can also be charged as people who are smuggled. So this is important to know as well. Malaysia acceded to the protocol on the Palermo Protocol, but we have a reservation. But it's not really important in terms of the context here. We have a reservation on the settlement of disputes in terms of arbitration. Yeah. So what is the legal framework for? It's pretty much similar to what the Palermo Protocol has. So we have the recruitment, and then we have the means, the act, the means, and the exploitation as well. And we have, as what Britusha had mentioned, we have this very similar types of tip cases in Malaysia. The sexual and the forced labor, which is labor trafficking, is very, very common. But that doesn't mean that the other types of child trafficking or human organ trafficking is not happening. It's just that there is not much focus or not much advocacy on those two areas, but it still exists in Malaysia. So labor trafficking is one of the most common forms of trafficking in Malaysia. Prior to the act and also prior to 2010, the government was mostly concentrating on sexual trafficking and didn't see labor trafficking as a trafficking act. But now most of the trafficking cases that are rescued in Malaysia and also reported in Malaysia are labor trafficking. And I must add that almost 96% of the labor trafficking, or rather the trafficking cases, not only labor, trafficking cases in Malaysia, 96% are foreign national, involves foreign nationals. Only 4% involves Malaysian nationals. So these are the key elements of trafficking in persons. Those of you who work on in this area, you will know that you have to prove all three elements before you can justify the victim to be a traffic victim. This is key because we actually amended the trafficking laws in Malaysia very recently, because, and I'll show you some of the cases why this amendments was needed. We looked at coercion as physical restraint. The courts did not accept coercion as mental coercion, or did not look at the mental condition of the worker when trafficking is involved. So they needed to see physical restraint. But we all know that in not all cases, the victims are physically restrained. You can mentally restrain a worker as well by threatening them with the death, or threatening them with the force, or those kind of use of force, or even against them or against their families. So unfortunately, this kind of mental coercion was not really recognized in Malaysia. So this is why we had a lot of cases they were rescued in almost in the thousands, sometimes in the hundreds, but eventually cases that come into the court were only 2 digits. So a lot of the cases will fall through the cracks because there was no physical restriction for them. Then this is why in the amendment we completely removed coercion. So the victim does not have to show coercion. What it does is like you can it's a means now. So you can show mental coercion and mental control. Okay, and exploitation also is widened. The scope is broadened to include all forms of exploitation. Previously, it was it means the exploitation means then you had to prove only this limitation. Now it includes, so which means it includes a broader scope of exploitation. Then we also have this particular amendment, which is section 12. Again, the sentencing was enhanced, but they also removed the purpose of exploitation. So you did not have to show a purpose of exploitation for victims who are adults, but who are physically and mentally disabled, or who has a medical condition. These are the other amendments that came into play as well. Most of it were increasing the imprisonment, like 10 to 15, 7 to 15. And also, we also included a section on whipping. So as an advocate and also a lawyer in Malaysia, we do not support whipping, because that is an act against the Convention Against Torture. But now the government has introduced whipping in trafficking cases. I'm just going to show you a few cases where prior to the amendments, how it looked like. So this was a case where the employer had kept the worker's passport and he didn't pay the workers. But the court held that the workers did not attempt to leave. And I like what I mentioned to you, there was no physical restraint. So the facts was insufficient to prove exploitation. But the interesting part is Section 12 of the Passport Act criminalizes a person from holding a passport of another. So it includes employers as well. But the court did not take into consideration that the fact that the worker's passport was not with them prohibited them from leaving as well. So for us, this was not a really good case in terms of interpretation of the law. We also have this case where this person was, this women were rescued from sexual trafficking. But this person was, when the police went as an undercover to this premises, the perpetrator was at the counter and he offered the sexual services of the women. But when the women gave testimony at the court, they said that they were not coerced into giving sexual services. But that did not mean they were not, for us, that did not mean that they were traffic victims. The women were still not allowed to go out of the premises. And, you know, in that kind of condition, you kind of like accept what is happening to you. So I felt that that the women's mental condition was not taken into account in this kind of cases. Here again, but in this instance, the accused was found guilty because although the victim had the travel documents, their movement was restricted and monitored. So in a sense where they could not move around anywhere without the accused being accompanied. Yeah. So in this case, he was found guilty. So it is, and then we have this another case where the worker ran away because he was not paid salaries of 4 months, and he was also assaulted. He claimed that in court. But the court held that the worker was employed with a valid work permit. The nature of the job that the worker was doing did not require monthly payment, but required payment per job basis. So they felt that because the worker didn't show any evidence that he was coerced into working with the plaintiff, so there was no case of trafficking. So these are types of the case we saw that the interpretation was not very good in terms of the trafficking and also the Palermo Protocol. So the amendments is actually a good amendment in terms of removing the coercion, and also that the burden of proving mental coercion is not on the, I mean, it's not excluded. So mental coercion is also now included in the amended act. So possibly we hope to see better interpretation of the work now. This was the section 14. This is again for people who are physically or mentally disabled. And again, they removed the consent, coercion, and all that, because there was a global report on trafficking in person 2020, which says that 23% of the victims of trafficking were persons with mental or behavioral or neurological disorder and physical disability. So I think this Section 14 amendments to recognize that vulnerability of that population is a good amendment. So we wanted to show you also how prior to the amendments under Section 14, this case involved two children aged 13 and 14. But the court held that they were not trafficked victims. They were undocumented Indonesian children because they felt that the children testified that they were working on a voluntary basis, and they were paid only 300 ringgit for their work at each month, which is way below the minimum wage in the country. And also there was no evidence of threat and all that. But the fact is that the judge did not consider that they were children, and they were unable to give consent. And in fact, that there were evidence presented at the trial that they lacked rest time, they had poor living conditions, and there was even no proper electrical facilities in the place that they worked and the place where they lived. But this was not taken into consideration. So Section 14 also was amended, like what I mentioned to you just now, to remove to show exploitation in that manner. So if a child is being exploited, the child need not show consent, need not show coercion. The perpetrator will be charged. In terms of forced labor, so it is important also to mention forced labor, because we do not have a specific law on forced labor in Malaysia. It's only very recent that we incorporated the amendments into our Employment Act. So in terms of the international framework, Malaysia is a signatory to the C29, the P29, which is very recent, only last year, and then of course the recommendation. So the C29 and the P29 are binding provisions. The recommendations, of course, are not legally binding. They're just practical guidelines for the enforcement of both the C29 and P29. So we also have this national guidelines on human trafficking indicators, which is also quite recent in March 2020. And you can see that this list is not exhaustive. These are some of the indicators of forced labor in Malaysia. Example, even when you don't have access to education or no social protection, or you're deprived of social protection, very bad working conditions, wage manipulation, all this constitutes forced labor in Malaysia.
Okay.
The local legal framework, like what I mentioned to you, Malaysia does not have a specific legislation on forced labor. So most of the cases are prosecuted under anti-trafficking. But because prior to the amendments of the anti-trafficking, the threshold for proving anti-trafficking is extremely high. So general forced labor offences actually were never prosecuted. So that was why there was a need to have a provision on forced labor in the laws. And we do have other laws in Malaysia, in the federal constitution, in the penal code, that looks at slavery and looks at forms of exploitation. But this has never been used. All these provision has never been used in prosecuting forced labor and modern day slavery. So this is also one of the examples of how forced labor is also not recognized in Malaysia prior to the inclusion of the provision. So this is a case where both appellants were charged for forced labor under Section 12, but I mean trafficking under Section 12, but the prosecution was not able to prove forced labor because the court held that late payment of wages was not forced labor. And they also said that the workers were given comfortable room, freedom to move, and so that's not forced labor. Okay, so the interpretation is a little different. And this is where 4 Cambodian women were also rescued, but then they only worked for 2 days, and so the court mentioned that no, there's no evidence of trafficking or forced labor as well. So the amendments came into play in under the Amendments Act of 2022. And it came into force on 1st January 2023. Sorry, that sentence is not supposed to be there. So we have this thing called Section 90B, which includes this forced labor, into the Employment Act 1955. But the problem in including the forced labor into the Employment Act is, now you will have to prove employer-employee relationship. Okay, and the current policy in the Ministry of Human Resources is they do not entertain cases of undocumented migrants. So migrants who face undocumented migrants who face forced labor in Malaysia still do not have an avenue for their case. Okay, because they will fall out of the trafficking laws because the threshold is too high, but they will not fall into the Employment Act because it does not cover them. Okay, and it also does not cover ILO indicators of forced labor, example, psychological control and of forced labor victims. So it just came into force. So we have not seen any cases being filed under this as yet. And so we are not able to see what is the interpretation of the courts on this particular provision. So this is the process of how rescue victims go through the process. So when the victims are rescued, and then they go to the police station, or either the police rescue them or the NGO rescues them, or whoever rescues them, they can bring them to the police station. It can be any police station. But my experience is to work with the headquarters D3 because they oversee all the trafficking cases in Malaysia. So I prefer to file my cases at D3 at the Bukit Aman, the headquarters, because I know that there will be follow-up. Sometimes when we do file in smaller districts or in district police station, it's quite difficult. Sometimes the police will not take the case, or they will try to argue us that this is not a trafficking case. Okay, so then they will apply for the interim protection order. This is to enable the victim to be placed in a shelter home governed by the government for 21 days. So during these 21 days, the investigation papers is open, and the investigating officer will have to investigate to see whether the worker is indeed, or the victim is indeed, a victim of trafficking. The frame of 21 days. Then once they are classified as victims of trafficking, then they apply for a protection order, and then the case will begin. So if you require an extension, then they will go to the magistrate court and get the protection order extended. So the victim will remain in the shelter until she or he testifies in the court. Yeah? So there is also a provision where when the victim is in the shelter, there is a regulations that allow the victim to move and work. So there's an application that needs to be done, and reports that needs to be submitted to show that this victim is capable of or mentally capable and physically capable to move around freely outside and able to work as well. So usually the work is also, how do you say, found and also looked into by the government. So they facilitate the process of looking for the work as well. The victims are able to communicate with the family through phone calls, but from what we see is usually about once a month, average of once a month. So if the victim has a protection order, but for some reason the victim doesn't want to pursue the case, or there is not enough evidence to pursue the perpetrator, the victim will remain in the shelter pending repatriation. This cost will be borne by the government. Okay, but if the victim is under interim protection order, okay, before the PO, if the victim is declassified, that means they find that the case the victim is not a victim of trafficking, and the victim doesn't want to pursue the case before the PO, then the victim will be sent to the detention center pending deportation. But the victim won't be charged for any immigration offenses. Yeah, and the cost of this detention, and this cost of deportation usually will be borne by the worker, the family, or usually the embassies. Okay. Okay, why am I not able to go to the next one? Okay. So it's important also to understand why victims don't file police reports in Malaysia. It's very, very common because a lot of times the victims themselves don't know they are victims. We have had many instances where the victims were paid salaries, but they are paid less And the victims will argue with us and say, but I was paid a salary. But we will tell them, but you were paid less than the minimum wage. But they don't care. They say, no, the fact that I was paid and I was able to educate my children and so on and so forth, I don't think I'm a victim of trafficking. I think my employer is good. So it's also about educating and helping the victim to understand why they are a victim of trafficking. Okay, and also forced labor and trafficking victims who are usually undocumented will always fear to report, because say suppose they are not going to be classified as traffic victim, then they will be detained and they will be deported. And they also face ban on migrating into the country, and also sometimes they face ban of remigrating out as well. So that is also a problem. And we see this a lot in the South Asia countries, the shame and culture in country of origin. Usually there'll be a village and almost one house, one person in every house would have migrated. And the victim, if they go back and they will be looked down upon, to say that, well, everybody else could migrate and earn money, but you couldn't. So there's always a shame and culture that they have to take back with them. They do face a lot of trauma, and this is not limited to only women migrants. This is also experienced by men migrants as well, and men victims as well. So counseling is needed. And sometimes this counseling is not given comprehensively to the migrant when they are in the shelter as well. But I know that shelters like the NGO shelters do a really, really good job in providing that services to the migrants in the shelters. Also, the duration of the trial and the confinement in the shelter can be really, really long. Okay, those victims who are under a protection order, they have this monthly allowance. But I find that the monthly allowance is only given when they leave the shelter, when they're going back to their country of origin. So they don't get it as in physically monthly with them. Okay. And a lot of times the family will usually pressure the victim to just come home, not pursue the case, and they just want them to come home. But we find that a lot of the pressure is put by the family, not because of the family, but also because of the traffickers in the country of origin. So they pressure the family to pressure the victim to not pursue the case. So these are the challenges we have. Like I mentioned to you, the Labor Department or Labor Court does not recognize undocumented workers' right to file in the Labor Court. But they can file in the industrial court, but you have to prove dismissal, and then you can file in the civil court, and that takes a very, very long time. And also there's one section that orders payment of compensation to the traffic victim, but this is discretionary by the court. It's not mandatory. Yeah. And what we have seen is most of the compensation paid to the victim of trafficking is usually non-payment of wages, something that they have monetary. Labor trafficking usually the case will be for the wages, it will be filed through the Labor Department. Unfortunately, sex trafficking victims do not get compensation because sex work is not recognized as work in Malaysia. So they don't get compensation. Settlement, when you do a settlement out of court, out of this trafficking, and you want to do a settlement, usually the recovery of the sum is very, very small compared to what you had requested. So these are some of the challenges that we face in terms of trafficking cases. How civil society and lawyers can support, and how we actually do support, is interpretation services. So the migrant communities provide these services. We work with the government on training for judges, prosecutors, and law enforcement authorities. There is a body called ILCAP, which is the Judicial and Enforcement Training Center, and you can collaborate with them to provide this training. As lawyers, it would be good for you to provide legal counseling on the procedures of the court, because this is something a lot of the victims don't understand. They don't understand why they're staying in the shelter so long, what is happening to their case, what is the procedure. So that this will help. As lawyers, you could help to provide this legal counseling. Then victims compensation, to assist the victim to calculate their wages, to calculate the wages that they have lost, and their overtime, and so on and so forth. So this is where lawyers also could come and help in this aspect. You can hold watching brief in the court, because in Malaysia it is the state against the perpetrator. So the perpetrator has a lawyer, but not the victim. So you can hold watching brief for the victim or the victim's family in court. You can accompany the victim to the court as a lawyer. And also you can do the regular briefings of the court procedures to the victim. If you find a victim or a victim has approached you, you can help them to lodge a police report as well. And this kind of assistance, we see that it helps to prevent re-victimization as well. One of the pertinent issues that we need to look at is the needs of the migrant. Why the migrant migrated to Malaysia? Okay, they migrated because they needed money to support the family. Okay, and that needs to be addressed. So if you keep the victim here for a long time and the family is left without any support, by and large, the victim will not pursue the case. So we have networks in the country of origin who help us to support the family during and after the case as well, so that the migrant is confident enough to go through the case in the country of destination. And then you can also do partnerships with the NGOs and enforcement in the country of origin. That's extremely important. Involvement of the law enforcement in country of origin is also important. Lawyers can play a role in this, especially where the victim's family is being threatened by the traffickers. So you can help the victim's family to lodge reports, to give protection through the enforcement in the country of origin. And this is something that a lot of CSOs and maybe lawyers don't do. Don't do because it is very, very complicated, but it's important. Usually when a trafficking case comes about, they will always concentrate on the final person that they arrest, usually the employer. But everyone else that is involved in the trafficking chain is not usually brought to justice. So as lawyers, it'll be great, and as civil society as well, it'll be great for us to map that chain of human trafficking with the victim that you interview with. Usually the traffickers will rely on the services of many people, and it's very, very complicated. The whole system is extremely complicated. It's very bureaucratic. There's a lot of connections, a lot of persons who are involved in the trafficking, no matter how small. And we find that usually traffickers will make the whole syndicate extremely complicated. Is basically they don't want them in themselves to be involved. And also, like, one person can have the expertise in some areas, so they will reduce the waiting time, the cost, and the red tape involved in working with the government, especially if they have someone doing that for them already. And then the more complex the process, the more difficult it is to trace. Yeah, and also they minimize their own exposure to authorities and public. So a lot of the victims, when we ask them like who approached them, who are the people, it's the person who's not the mastermind of the syndicate. It's always people who are from the village, someone who's taken a small amount of money to recruit and things like that. So the whole big mastermind is not involved in or is not exposed to public or the authorities or even to the victims themselves. So in our work, this is how we map out the actors in the human trafficking, the recruiters, those who promise the employment, the use of the employment, the travel agencies, and sometimes it even involves friends and family who actually recruit the victim as well. Then there's adoption as well, and then the transport providers. We find that usually once the victim agrees to take on the work, they will be immediately removed from the family because they want to remove that social support from the family, and also to subject the victim to an environment of dependency on the person who is going to be trafficking them. Yeah, and usually we see where the victim is taken quite a distance away from their family, either to another town, another state, another country. Okay, and exploitation, again, it can be anything. It can be sex, it can be labor, it can be organ trafficking as well, and it can run in any how do you say, commercial industry, home industry. We have seen it in anything. So it's not to say that it's only how do you say, commercial enterprise or a big small or medium enterprise. It can even happen in a family-run businesses. We have seen where a family has been running a brothel above their restaurant. So there's no limitation in where exploitation can happen and where trafficking can happen. So I think that's how you need to map in terms of who are the players in the chain of human trafficking. Okay, so that's the end of my presentation, and thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much, Sumita, for that very enlightening presentation and very comprehensive. And we can see questions in the chat box, fired up. So to all who have sent their questions, don't you worry, we have documented them very well. Again, there are also people who have just signed in. All of the questions will be entertained and answered by our panelists after our third presenter will do his piece. Okay, and thank you for your questions. And for sure, Britusha and Sumita are reading your questions in the meeting chat. So they will have answers later on during the question and answer portion. So just an overview, we hope to end by the next hour after Kuldeep's presentation. Then we will have a plenary Q&A. Then we will launch the fact sheet that Free the Slaves, Our Journey, and Global Shepherds have compiled to summarize this event or to capture the situation of modern slavery in Malaysia. Okay, so to introduce our third panelist, once again, thank you, Sumita. You made my day with your presentation. Thank you for educating us about the modern slavery in Malaysia using the lens of, law for that matter. So to introduce our third speaker, we have Mr. Kuldeep from Free the Slaves. So he is our last panelist. So as the regional director for Asia, his personal mission is to change the conditions that allow modern slavery to exist. And he represents Free the Slaves in the region, provides ongoing technical assistance to partner organizations in strategic design, implementation, measurement, and reporting, and hold responsibility for the overall management of the regional program, strategy development, business development, and program oversight. So he's very passionate about human rights, social justice issues, community-initiated solutions, and improving access to opportunities for marginalized, economically disadvantaged communities. He values the field perspective, builds trust and rapport with stakeholders, and believes in a problem-solving attitude. His pragmatic approach has been forged through the years of designing and implementing development programs in several Asian countries. So our third speaker has worked for over 15 years managing donor-funded programs, training in capacity building and human rights, empowering farmers and workers and ethical standards in the private sector, supply chains, stakeholders relation, resource mobilization, and oversight of resources and operations. So prior he joined Free the Slaves, he worked with Oxfam, Leonard Cheshire Disability, and Fair Trade in Asia Pacific in various operational and senior leadership roles. So Kuldeep holds a bachelor's degree in chemical engineering and a double master's in business management, specializing in human resource management and marketing. So he will speak with us, covering the topic with the opportunity for Malaysian CSOs to work with international organizations and bodies, with overall general overview and international collaborations. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Kuldeep Chauhan. Kuldeep, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Romsi. And thank you to my previous speakers, Britosia and Sumita, for giving a fantastic overview of Malaysia and the efforts their organizations in taking in Malaysia. Now we will segue to the international collaborations part. So here I'll mostly talk about Alliance 8.7, how all of you can collaborate with Alliance 8.7 and contribute to this goal. And also in the end, I would like to briefly introduce my organization, which is Free the Slaves. So Alliance 8.7, as from the name, it is obvious that it is around the SDG target 8.7, which speaks about eradicating forced labor, modern slavery, human trafficking, and child labor. So this alliance is a grouping of countries It was started, the talks around it started somewhere around 2016, but it was really crystallized during the period of 2020 to 2022, wherein these two meetings happened with a core group of countries, and they decided to come together to establish this Alliance 8.7 organization. It has a secretariat, which is currently ILO acts as the secretariat of Alliance 8.7. This Alliance 8.7 is a platform for stakeholders to share information, promising practices, and also an opportunity to collaborate with each other towards specific activities and targets, but importantly, to demonstrate progress towards achieving SDG 8.7. Partners, when we speak about, includes government organizations. Governments have to become a partner or a member of this organization, and how they can do it is a responsible minister from the government has to sign up and fill a form, and application has to be submitted, which would be perused or looked into by the Secretariat of Alliance 8.7, and based on their commitments and interests, a decision would be taken to admit the government applicant or not. And there are other international and regional organizations, business organizations, civil society organizations, academic institutions, research institutions as well, and other stakeholders and networks of organizations interested in addressing Target 8.7. They can be a part of this grouping of Alliance 8.7. So how this alliance is organized? So it is organized around 5 main pillars. On the first and the most important decision-making pillar is the Global Coordinating Group. So it is composed of the representatives of the stakeholder groups who are part of Alliance 8.7. And this group is responsible to monitor progress of the countries who have accepted Alliance 8.7 membership, and they have to submit a roadmap. So yearly, this Global Coordinating Group discusses their progress and admits members. So it's a decision-making group as well. The officials of these groups are on the basis of rotation of the membership of the country. So current chair is the government of Chile, and the government of Cote d'Ivoire is the vice chair of this grouping. It is supported by a secretariat. Currently, ILO serves as the secretariat and is responsible for day-to-day operations, including communications among alliance partners and providing assistance to the Global Coordinating Group. Also, in case the countries require any information or support, the secretariat provides that support. So that's the second pillar. And then we have Pathfinder countries. As I said, these are the countries who are committed towards achieving the SDG target 8.7, and they have to prepare a roadmap which will show how they will achieve this target 8.7. And the progress, as I said, is monitored by the Global Coordinating Group, and the Secretariat is there to support them. So these are the countries who are members of the Alliance 8.7. And then there are partners around it, the partners who are committed to supporting and implementing the initiatives which contribute to achieving this SDG target of 8.7, which includes the membership or the CSOs or organizations within the Pathfinder countries, but without as well. It is not necessary that your country should be a Pathfinder country to become a partner. So all these stakeholders from around the world commit together to realize the human rights standards and promise to focus on accelerating the international labor standards as well. And the final is the action groups. So there are various action groups under Alliance 8.7, and these are the thematic priorities of the Alliance 8.7 grouping. Now, these action groups, stakeholders can join based on their expertise, and these groups are related to, say, for example, supply chain and others, and they can contribute their expertise towards research, policy, and various actions, sharing best practices around those issues. So these are the 5 main pillars of this grouping, Alliance 8.7. Now, going a little bit more into Pathfinder countries. From Asia, we have 3 Pathfinder countries currently who are members of Alliance 8.7. These are Fiji, Nepal, and Vietnam. These countries commit to adopt and develop legislation and practices and ingrain them into their national action plans or policies related to child labor, forced labor, modern slavery, human trafficking. They make through their roadmaps public commitments. So they commit to translate them into concrete actions. And as you know, there are various protocols, global protocols, etc. So they commit to include those protocols, ratify those protocols, including international human rights standards and labor standards. As we discussed before, a global coordinating group is the group which acts as the steering committee of this group, Alliance 8.7, and periodically, which is mostly yearly, reviews and decides on countries' requests to become Pathfinder countries, and also reviews the progress they are making against Alliance 8.7 commitments they have made. There is an important mechanism which has come up recently. As you know, the issues with multilateral groupings, wherein many a times there is a risk of becoming a talk shop without any concrete action. So this accountability framework is very important adoption by Alliance 8.7 countries, which aims to strengthen the accountability around the commitments they have made and ensures that Alliance 8.7 remains an effective and credible organization. So this whole framework, which was developed, which was an idea of our organization, Free the Slaves, and we work closely with the Alliance 8.7 Secretary to develop it over a period of around 3 years. And it was finalized and adopted by the Alliance 8.7 in the meeting, the recent meeting they held in Italy. And now this accountability framework is applicable to all the current and future Pathfinder countries. So basically what it does is it's a set of guidelines and guidance, what it means to be a Pathfinder country, and the expectations and responsibilities with which comes with being a Pathfinder country. So this framework clearly describes all the stages of Pathfinder process, from the initial manifestation of interest. So now there's a process of manifestation of interest, to the planning, implementation, monitoring, and reporting and review stages. So how everything will go by and the whole process will take forward. So that's very important, and that has been adopted by the Alliance 8.7, which is very, very important for countries to, for keeping them to their commitment. It also has a set of penalties in terms of if countries which have committed something and they have not delivered, so what kind of action can be taken. We'll share a link towards the end of this presentation, wherein you can go through the accountability framework and read for yourself what this framework entails. I just wanted to give a brief about this framework here for the want of time. Now, importantly, how your organizations can contribute towards Alliance 8.7 and associate
Kuldeep.
with Alliance 8.7.
Hi, Kuldeep.
Sorry,
Sorry to
Ramsey.
interrupt. Yes, your screen went dim. You might have pressed
But
some.
can you read it?
We can, but a bit difficult.
I don't know, Ramsey, what to do.
Okay. Yeah, please
Oh, we
continue.
can see the screen clearly actually.
Yeah, it's clear, Romsey. I think you
Maybe
have
your
some
side.
issue with your connection. Yeah.
Okay, sorry, Kuldeep. Please continue.
Okay. So as I was saying, how your organizations can contribute. So there is a definition like who can be a member. As we have seen, the partner can be government institutions, but also international and regional organizations, civil society organizations, workers' organizations, academic institutions, even journalists and survivor networks can be a member of Alliance 8.7 and contribute through your knowledge and the ongoing discussions about Alliance 8.7. So, partners, as we saw the 5 pillars, one of the pillar was partners. Partners can be actively engaged in Alliance 8.7 by signing up at this link, which is on the screen. Towards the end of this PPT or in the chat section, we'll post this link as well. So you can go and sign up to become a partner. Your application would be submitted to the Global Coordinating Group, which is the decision-making group in Alliance 8.7. And once approved, your organization's logo and website link will be featured on the partner section of the Alliance 8.7 website. You will also start getting regular consultations, regular updates from Alliance 8.7 Secretariat, and hence then you can participate in its meetings or other activities. So you can also, if your country is already a Pathfinder country, then you can also liaise and coordinate with the representatives on the Alliance 8.7 Global Coordinating Group and liaise with them to give feedback and share your experiences with the representatives in the Global Coordinating. There is currently an opportunity open to join Global Coordinating Group. That link we will also share with you, so you can apply and become a Global Coordinating Group member. The criteria for it is your organization should be from the so-called Global South organizations. It can be a CSO or an INGO, but registered in Global South. So you can look or to apply and become a member of the Global Coordinating Group as well. Here, now I would like to also, for a few minutes, touch into our organization. My organization is Free the Slaves. We started in the year 2000. Our first programming was in Asia and particularly in India, and thence we have worked in multiple countries across Asia. Currently, our programs are running in India, Nepal, Vietnam, and we are doing capacity building and other such trainings in countries across Asia like Philippines, Cambodia, and other countries. I'm sure many of your organizations would have participated in these capacity building trainings as well. Our focus is towards community-based intervention, and we have a selected list of targeted countries in which these interventions, community-based interventions, are made. We have this strategy in our website. You can go and have a look. And we also do a lot of research and evaluation, not only of our programs, but for our partners And currently, for example, we did an extensive research running over a year in Philippines about impact of climate change on modern slavery, which would be released shortly within this year in Philippines. And like that, we are open to research ideas, interesting research ideas, and we do such kind of research across the globe as well. Our mission is about changing the conditions that allow modern slavery to exist. So here is the list of our understanding of why our mission is what it is, and what we are doing about realizing our mission. And our vision is a community-based model for freedom. As I said, our approach is very community focused. So we understand the conditions through which the vulnerability arises, and we have our programming around those to address those vulnerabilities. And a community-based model help communities to build capacity so that they can chart their own path towards sustainable freedom based on their own unique needs and circumstances in each community. So our programs, as we say, are into these 4 pillars. The first is movement building. I'm sure many of you have been part of our Freedom from Slavery forum. So these forums are globally and regionally as well. So we have had a global forum. The most recent one was in Dominican Republic, Punta Cana. We also organized towards the beginning of this year Freedom from Slavery Forum in Asia with record participation. It was an online forum, which is our contribution towards bringing all the stakeholders together and create a platform for discussion and knowledge sharing. We have our advocacy pillar, in which, like I said, and highlighted our role in Alliance 8.7. And also our efforts, advocacy efforts, are also geared towards driving legal reforms from the international stage to local community. And I already mentioned, the third pillar is about engaging local communities, mobilizing them, and engaging the local communities. And finally, continuous learning. I spoke about research, but also our capacity building initiatives with CSOs, with survivor networks, etc., which are through a community liberation toolkit. So this is a set of modules. We provide our time and resources to work with CSOs and engage them to build capacities around various facets of addressing modern slavery, which is very specific to the countries and the communities they operate in. So thank you so much. These are the 2 links wherein you can find more about Alliance 8.7 and Free the Slaves. My time is up. Thank you so much. My name is Kuldeep Singh Chauhan. As you know, I'm Regional Director for Asia. If you want to contact us for any collaboration, any learning opportunity to participate in our capacity development programs, our mandate is limited to Asia. Please feel free to contact me on this email ID. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Kuldeep, for that presentation. So now, everybody, we are, as promised to you earlier, we hope to end in the next 30 minutes. And probably we'll be spending the next 20-25 minutes to ask our panelist with questions coming from the audience. So earlier, we had questions from several people. Let me just revisit them. I put them in the list. Okay. So just to provide order, probably I'll just ask the first question to Britusha, because there are questions here that could be, that are applicable to Britusha's scope. Then we pass it on to Sumita, then to Kuldeep, and whoever would like to answer the following questions in the chat. Okay. So let me, in behalf of, but Chandra is here. Chandra is our partner too, but maybe Britusha could answer Chandra's question regarding Malaysia is tier 2 watch. So what do we do to improve the status from the perspective coming from, the private sector, CSO? So do you have any insights with this one, Britusha?
Thanks, Sandra, for that question. We need to continue to work harder to look at how we can support the different pillars. But tier 2 watch list with specific areas where we need to improve, particularly in regards to the prosecution, where we have very low cases that are being convicted. So that's where I think if you heard Sumi and the challenges that she's presented in terms of the legal scope of trafficking, that's where our challenges lie. So it's really advocating for a safe space for survivors to be able to share their stories, to have the systems to be more friendlier, more trauma-informed, more sensitized, that there's a safe space for survivors to be able to report, to be able to go through the system, and more support for survivors in terms of reintegration and also in terms of restoration, return, and a sustainable reintegration. I think that's where we need to work a little bit more in terms of training, capacity building with different stakeholders, and bringing in the tools to support the institutionalization of how we can move systems in the right direction, so they're more sensitive to the needs of the survivors, as well as looking at the processes itself. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Britusha. I think all of us here in the room will strongly agree. But a follow-up question could be somehow related, but this next question, Sumita, you could also chime in. So Purva Gupta asked, are trafficking victims also children, and are they in supply chains? Britusha, then Sumita.
Yeah, there are men, women, boys, and girls who are survivors of trafficking, who are in the system, who have been rescued and placed in shelter homes, or some don't even get into the system. So there are women and children, and boys and girls. Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay. Again, to confirm, they are in supply chains related modern slavery issues. Okay.
Yeah, so in terms of children, yes, the government has released data in that. This was quite some time back. So they released data in that they have about 50 children in the shelter homes, that which houses boys and girls separately. But they didn't give us a data as in whether they were Malaysian children or foreign national children. But from our experience, we do find children working in the plantation and also in the construction site. These are the two quite industries that we see many children working there because of their parents. And also in Sabah, which is in the east part of Malaysia, you will see a lot of children working in Sabah. So we do have, you cannot deny that we don't have child labor in child labor and child trafficking in Malaysia. We do have. It's just that the way the cases are being dealt when it comes to children. Example, if the child is foreign national, then the child after the case will be sent back to their country of origin, regardless of whether the parents are here in Malaysia. So sometimes the outcome for the children are not in the best interest of the children as well. So that is one of the issues when we deal with trafficking in children and child labor in Malaysia. I think the policies are not in the best interest of the child. Yeah, but we do have children in trafficking. Yes.
Okay, since you mentioned something about regardless of nationalities, I think this could do well with the next question from Alana Willer. Britusha and Sumita, what are the nationalities of the victims of trafficking? Like an overview.
I think it's across across the nationalities. There's no specific nationality that has more traffic victims than the other. We have Vietnamese. At one point of time, before 2010, we had a lot of sex trafficking victims. We had a lot of Vietnamese workers who were female trafficking victims who were Vietnamese. Now we have Bangladeshis. Now we have Indonesians, Indians, Sri Lankans, just about everything. Global Shepherd runs a trafficking shelter, so they can tell you as well. It's across the board. There's no specific nationality. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Correct. We also see cut across no one particular nationality that comes through. Just anyone and everyone. Not only Southeast Asia, but outside as well. We have cases coming in. But that being said, there's a little bit of trend analysis that we can share in terms of the migrant profile. Sometimes the number of cases in terms of percentage, when we have a larger percentage of migrants coming in from a certain country, the profile of trafficking cases increase in that way. So example, if we have a large number of Indonesian migrants coming in, then the profile of cases from Indonesia would be higher. That would be something that we see in our shelter.
Yeah, in terms of Malaysia, Indonesia is the largest labor sending country to Malaysia, followed by Bangladesh, and then followed by Nepal. So, of course, in terms of the numbers, it is definitely more Indonesians that you see, but it's not reflective of the trafficking situation, meaning that if you have more Nepalis, then you will have more Nepal workers as well. But because the number of workers that are coming from Indonesia are larger, then you have more Indonesians, and then you have more Bangladeshis as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. This is across all types of trafficking, right? Or there's a specific segment that they're more into, let's say, sex trafficking. What has been like the trend lately?
I do not know. Maybe British can say, but in terms of our cases, it's across the board. In sex trafficking, we see Indonesians, Filipinos, Bangladeshi women as well, Indian women as well. So I can't tell you that specifically this country is more prone to sex trafficking. No, I don't think we can say that.
Mm-hmm.
Same Ramsey. There's no particular trend. It just cuts across the board.
Okay, thank you. So with my role now, I'm trying to, make the questions related as much as possible because questions were firing up earlier. So with this question from Farhad Al Karim, are your country, so we'll now go to legal instruments. Oh, sorry, this one first. Let's go back to Alana Wheeler. So before we go to legal instruments, so she asked, how does law distinguish between forced labor and labor trafficking?
I think I explained that in my presentation. Labor trafficking and forced labor is two different. Now, forced labor has a specific clause in the Employment Act, but trafficking has a trafficking law, specifically a statute, a standalone statute. So the threshold for trafficking is much higher than for forced labor, but the indicators will be very similar: withholding of passports, withholding of wages, non-payment of wages. And all that will be similar for both. But I think the defining between the two would most probably be the severity of the offense. Either the workers not being paid for many years, or the workers suffered injuries or suffered some force violence or things like that. And also that maybe that the worker unable to escape because of mental coercion or physical restraint, then by and large it may be falling under trafficking. But forced labor, you don't have to show that kind of what do you call that, coercion and physical restraint. But like what I mentioned, the law for that particular law on forced labor that was incorporated into the Employment Act is very, very new. We have not seen cases being tried under that act yet, under that 90B. Until that is done, then only we can understand how they are going to interpret the act, that particular clause. So we're not able to tell you that this is how it's going to be done. But from past experience, this is how they differentiate between forced labor and child labor, the coercion and the physical restraint. But we will see after this, once the cases come into the Section 90B, how it's going to be tried.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I think this is also connected to a question from Farham Al Karim. So, are the law provisions partially, so for sure you have your country legal instruments, but do they also cover expatriates labor apart from UN Convention or UN Palermo Protocol?
Are you asking whether the laws cover expatriates? Is that what you're
Yes,
asking?
yes. Yes, Sumita.
Yeah, expatriate, it covers everyone. It covers everyone. The laws just is not saying that it only covers migrants from low skilled labor. So it covers everybody. It covers Malaysian, it covers expatriate, it covers everyone. There's no
Okay.
different laws for trafficking of expatriates.
Okay. So thank you, Sumita. So now I'm also getting questions regarding victims and survivors, but I just wanna that I will entertain that one. But this one seems to be very interesting, still from Chandra. She said that the breakdown of the slavery that you presented earlier, Sumita, is not listed in UN protocol. So can you explain why this is the case for
I
Malaysia?
can't see that. What's the question?
The breakdown of the slavery that you presented is not listed in the UN protocol. Can you explain more?
Romsey, what are you saying?
Hello? Hello? Can you hear me? Hi, Sumita. Oh, God. Hi.
Romsey, your voice
hear
is breaking.
Yep. Sorry.
Yeah.
Am I clear now?
Yes, now you are clear.
Okay, sorry for that one. Sorry, everybody. So again, Sumita, Chandra asked earlier in your presentation, the forms of slavery is not listed in UN protocol. So can you explain why this is the case for Malaysia?
No, the type of cases that we see in Malaysia, that's what I had listed. It's not something to do with the UN protocol. The
Okay.
type of cases that we see in Malaysia are trafficking, sexual, organ, those kind of cases.
Okay. Thank you. Then a follow-up question was more about Britusha, you can also chime in. Can you explain about victim protection if they pursue justice?
Britusha, you can. Victim protection if they pursue justice.
Justice, yes.
Can you ask that question in a different way? So that I'm clearer?
Hello?
There's,
Britusha?
do victims pursue justice? Do they go into court
Yes.
and pursue justice? Is that it?
Yes.
I think they're asking about the victim protection when they pursue
Yes.
justice.
I can't hear you actually.
The victim protection when they pursue justice.
Okay. So maybe I'm not, I can't hear properly, but I'll try to answer this question. So the survivors who come into our shelter, they are, as Sumitra has shared, they would come in with an IPO, and after a 21 day, they go into if there's an investigation that proves that they are survivors or victims of trafficking, they are given a PO, and they are given 3 months stay in the shelter, during which they go to court and they submit their witness statements. So they do get that whole support in terms of seeking legal justice for their case. They are provided with support in terms of in the shelter itself, we provide counseling so that they are prepared as a victim. They are given therapy if they require therapy. They are provided with other support in terms of briefing on what happens in the court. So they do we do give them all this support so that they are much more prepared when they go into court to provide their witness statement. Would that be something that you're is that what you're asking? Am I responding to your question?
Yes, I think so, Britusha. Yeah. Do you have anything to add with that, Sumita?
No,
Okay.
no.
Okay. Thank you. So great questions. If I can go to this time about survivors. So can you give light about the situation of survivors in Malaysia? How is this unique compared to how other countries are treating survivors in your country?
Say again, Romsey.
Can you give an overview about the situation of survivor engagement and leadership in Malaysia?
You're asking whether they are in some sort of because the survivors who are in Malaysia, if they are victims of trafficking, there's two avenues. One is they will return home to the country of origin. If they are allowed to work and move freely in Malaysia, then they're given that there's a regulation that governs that. So they're able to work in Malaysia during their case and also to stay on in Malaysia as well. But if you're asking whether the survivors are given some empowerment or brought into the limelight to be advocates and all that, I don't think that is happening in Malaysia. Because I feel that a lot of them just want to work, and it's a really a big task itself to get them to tell their stories. So I do not do that. I actually do not want to do that kind of work in the sense that trying to make them into advocates. I think it's a very difficult thing. I think it's not fair for the victims as well. But then I do not know whether Global Shepherd does any work on that. I know that they do programs to help the workers and in terms of empowerment and all that, but I do not know whether we make them into advocates.
Thanks for that question. Actually, it's a long journey. Most of the survivors who stay in our shelter, the period of stay would be perhaps 6 months to 8 months. During that process, most of them are just focused on giving their witness testimony and then going back home. So it doesn't give us much time to work on providing them with the support and the skills and the tools to work on survival leadership. That's something that is a bit of a challenge for us because most of them are not Malaysians. They go back to their own country and they really want to go back to their own country with the experience that they have had and the long period of not being in contact with their family and not being able to go back. That's all they yearn to do. So most of them, I wouldn't discount. There are some that we have tried working on empowerment process gearing towards survival leadership. But most of the individuals that we start off working with, that would be their intention and goal, to go back home, to want to just start a new life back in their own country. So survival leadership is a bit challenging within the context of Malaysia. We do a little bit here and there, empowering them, but I don't think that accounts for survival leadership. That's a whole set of work and program that requires a different set of intervention.
Yes.
Yeah, in fact, the survivors that we assist to return back home, and we assist them to find NGOs there that can help them to reintegrate and to avoid re-victimization and things like that. Sometimes the survivor does not want to pursue those avenues. They just want to leave the past behind and carry on with their life. And I think that's something that we need to respect as well. I've not found even one of the workers that we have repatriated home who were willing to be to take up some sort of leadership and things like that. No, not at all.
Okay, thank you. We are running out of time, but I just really want to cover this one. One question from Sir Eugene Gonzalez from the Philippines. So have there been cases of traffic victims transiting through Malaysia on the way to pig butchering or scum hubs in Myanmar?
I do not know. Maybe Patricia. No, I do not know any of those
Sorry.
kind of transit victims. No.
Mhm.
No, unfortunately, no.
Okay, okay. I think the question came from the trend lately that there's been, a rise of cases like hundreds of thousands of people from across Southeast Asia being trafficked to Myanmar due to these online scam.
Okay.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, yes, we are aware.
Yes. Okay. So I hope apologies everyone, we are running out of time, but I think Ritusha and Sumita and Kuldeep, if I have your consent, can I email your emails and contact to our participants because they have so many reactions here. And for me personally, some situations in Malaysia, let's say for survivor engagement, is a bit of a shock. It's really not the same with, let's say, for Philippines, for Vietnam, simply because of the nature of the traffic or the situation in the country. Okay, and with that, I hope this will also help that to our participants, these three organization who organized this event has compiled a fact sheet that all of you will have. We will email this with you after the event, and we have published this as a blog post in Free the Slaves, and it will be soon available to the websites of Our Journey and Global Shepherds. So this fact sheet is an effort of Free the Slaves, Our Journey and Global Shepherds that covers the overview of modern slavery in Malaysia, specifically highlighting key figures, characteristics, what are the drivers, and what are the efforts that we need to do in order to combat this grave violation of human rights in the country. So it has been in the works for the past a month or two, and we are so happy to share this with you as part of what you can take away from this webinar. Okay, so this will be sent to you, two links, and also with the file. We have all your emails and we will broadcast it to our partners because this is a good resource. An effort of three organizations who have the best interest to, put Malaysia at the center of the discussion when it comes to the international arena in terms of collaboration. And we have good partners, Our Journey and Global Shepherds, who have good and years of experience in delivering various forms of services in the country. So please feel free to connect with them. I hope this event is just a start of future collaborations and partnerships. So to close the event, may we have some few words from all of our panelists, just 2, 3, 5 sentences on challenging our participants on what we can do together. So can I start with you, Britusha? Just to close, what can we do together in order to address modern slavery in Malaysia? Just very brief.
Thanks, Ramsey. I would reiterate what I said in my presentation, that collaboration is key. We cannot do this on our own. We need to collaborate, be it internally or cross-border with other countries. And I think safeguarding systems are important. They provide the protection for our ecological system. So it's to work towards providing a safe space for everyone to ensure that safety is our priority. Thanks.
Okay. Yes, Sumita, same question. Parting words.
Yeah, I suppose like what Britusha also mentioned, collaboration is key. And we are always looking for partners in country of origin to work with in terms of trafficking, to support trafficking victims when they return. Because options in Malaysia, unfortunately, are limited. Even the right to work is limited like to 3 years. And the environment here does not really support migrant workers in general. And also migrant workers work, in fact, even traffic victims as well. There's always a fear that they may be re-trafficked again. So that's why we always look at partners in country of origin to help us for reintegration, to ensure that the migrant is not re-victimized or re-trafficked. So all this is extremely important in terms of collaboration. We do have a good network currently, the Migrant Forum in Asia, but we always look for new partners that can help us in this work. Thank you.
Thank you, Sumita and Kuldeep.
Thank you, Ramsey. Yes, like my previous speaker said, partnership is key, collaboration is key. As I said in my presentation, Free the Slaves has been making a lot of efforts to create platforms to share knowledge and platforms to bring stakeholders together like this, creating resources for our common movement like the fact sheet in partnership with Our Journey in Global Shepherds, which we have recently launched. So we have a lot of initiatives. Please, you can keep in touch with any Asia-wide initiatives or collaboration in the country you would like to get us in touch with. And we will share after this meeting Sumita's and Britoshia's email ID. So if you want to get in touch with Global Shepherds or Our Journey, you can reach out to the respective executive directors. Lastly, may I request you all to please open your videos so we can make this moment memorable and have a group photograph. And also, I'm pasting our Facebook group page, so please join it if you are interested in Asia happenings in Malaysia. We keep on updating interesting stuff, not only related to Free the Slaves, but what our partners are doing and what is happening globally in the movement. So you can join this group, which we have recently created. I've posted the link in the chat section. So Romsey, can we have the group photograph?
Okay, thank you, Kuldeep. Yes, everybody, if you can turn on your cameras so we can have a group picture. Okay, but this one will be in 2 pages due to the number of people here in this event. So everyone, if you can turn on your pictures. Thank you so much really for joining. Even if, we have been in discussion about Malaysia, but every new learning platform opportunity being opened, it's always, a new learning and new experience. Okay, again, open your camera if you can. Thank you. Alana, Farhad, Mary, Sandra. Okay, there you go. I will take the first picture. Okay, please smile. 3, 2, 1. Okay, second page, please smile. 3, 2, 1. Okay, thank you so much, everybody. So as we come to the end of this webinar, we'd like to express our gratitude to our partners, Sumita and Britusha, for your invaluable contribution, and to our attendees for your active participation. So we hope we continue to collaborate and work towards a future free of a modern slavery. And this marks the end of this event. So thank you, everyone, and stay safe. Goodbye. Please expect an email from me with the fact sheet and the email contacts of our panelists. Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye, thank you.